Okay. So we've just done a class for third trimester. So we've been doing all the prenatal stuff. Tomorrow we're going to do some postnatal stuff, getting yourself back in the room. So I'll just go over again how you would sequence that. So you would ask them at the beginning, I'll give them like a little health questionnaire. I might make one up for you actually that you guys can use like for tomorrow and put it in your group. I think it's important that they fill in some sort of health questionnaire before you teach them, so you're aware of what stage of pregnancy they're at and if there is any problems. And you can verbally ask them at the beginning. You can. Oh, it says that I left the room there. That's quite interesting. Oh well, maybe I did. So you can verbally ask any of them to tell you of any changes, because they're changing all the time. So they need to let you be aware, never make us, they can't assume you know how they feel. Because that you'll find your yoga students do sometimes think that you know what's going on inside them. And sometimes you can really sense their energy, but you're not a mind reader, okay? So we'd start in a circle. Well, you would try to, the way things are right now with COVID, there's two meters apart in a circle. It would need to be a very large room. So, do what you can. And then we would have about 8 minutes warm up, as I said. You would focus on the spine, the shoulders and the hips, then coming on to the hands and the knees, working with, like trying to open up the hips and get the spine to flow. You might want to pop in, some swooping cats or some kind of sun salutations, and then you'd move into standing sequences. It would probably be about 12 minutes or so standing sequences, and then you can pop in. This is just averaging, so you can add more or less. This is just, you can fill in the hour. Wall stretches, go to the wall. So you can do the wall dog, forward bends, Parsvottanasana. You do the pelvic tilt with your back against the wall, arm stretching to open up the shoulders, quad stretches with the dancer's pose. Lots of different ways you can do, but don't stay in them longer than 5 breaths. If you're not doing today, we didn't do much wall stuff because we did chair stuff. So, you can move it around. I always say it's easier when you're like writing up your sequences or figuring what you're going to do by putting everything into segments, and then you can move the segments around and change it, adapt it in that way. It makes it easier for you, and it makes it easier for your students to understand your way of teaching. And you might use like about 5 minutes of sun salutations to use as a transition down to the floor. So floor work, do maybe some seated sequences, some forward bends, kneeling sequences. You would then maybe do some pranayama, pelvic floor stuff, mantra. I thought it might have been appropriate to do some mantra work. But I gave you Sriripasana, and then I gave you a wee mantra at the end. But you can do a call and response. Gayatri mantra is a lovely one to do. It's call and response, and as I said, mantra is great for vagal tone and calming the baby and calming yourself as well. So you can incorporate that with, some people find mantras a bit uncomfortable. So, be aware of what feels right for you. Okay, I used to find mantras incredibly uncomfortable before I was a yoga teacher. I would be the one in the back being all self-conscious, and that's why I understand that people can feel that way. But because I practice them now and I feel the difference, I know how beneficial they are. I do practice them, and I practice vocal mantras. Reach the consciousness, reach your conscious mind, and they also, obviously tone your vagus nerve. But mantras said internally reach your subconscious mind. They're actually far more powerful in that sort of sense. So you can do, you can move from a posture to say the first part of the Gayatri mantra, you call in response. So you say it on the inhale, and as they exhale, they're responding. You can do that, and then the next time you do it, you say it, and then they respond internally. So you can do it at call and response vocally and then internally. It's really powerful. I do that with my tantric guys, but mantras are very, very powerful. And again, if you want to go deeper into that, that's a whole other thing. Okay, so let's look at different asanas and how you would adapt for pregnancy. So beginning with Baddha Konasana, cobbler's pose, Baddha Konasana, Supta Baddha Konasana. So the soles feet are together, the feet and the knees are apart. You could, with pregnancy, you would want to maybe get them to sit in a blanket or sit in a prop or sit in a bolster. And if they're suffering from PGP, like pelvic girdle pain, we don't want them to be opening up their legs too much. So you would avoid that for pelvic girdle pain. But it's really good for labor prep, and it's good for preparing the pelvis for labor and delivery. You can add arm, shoulder, upper back, lateral stretching movements to it as well, and integrate the movement with breathing. So variations are supporting under the knees with blocks or blankets, or circling in rotating motion around the pelvis as well. It's another one. And you can also do it when you're leaning up against a wall to give them some support too. So if you want to do the restorative Supta Baddha Konasana, you would not really do that in third trimester because they're lying on their backs. And if you were in second trimester doing that, you would raise their hips or add, and raise them up a little bit. So as the armchair shavasana type thing that that I did, that would be, so they're not flat in their backs. So they would still be up a little bit more. Yeah. So there's not all that pressure. So you would prop them up, add knee, thigh support. But it's good circulation for the pelvis, and it relieves fatigue. Okay, so yeah. So bridge pose, Setu Bandhasana. That's I might just see if somebody's trying to get into the group. No. So it's a gentle back bend, which is good for pregnancy, but you're not going to do it for a very long time. And you're not going to be you're not going to be on your back. You're going to undulate. You're going to move with the breath. So dynamic Setu Bandhasana. So integrate the movement with the breathing, and then you're finishing with lying on the side, on the left side after doing that, just to check back in with yourself, and always demonstrate it first. With that one, it allows the release of pelvic congestion. It actually makes them feel a little bit brighter, but be aware that it doesn't always feel very good once you're in third trimester. There's a lot of weight there, and it might not feel good, so be aware of that. So but a supported variation may actually help turn a breech baby. Okay, we'll speak about optimal fetal positioning later on, and different postures you can use to help if the baby's in breech, what sort of postures you might want to work with. So camel, Ustrasana. We're not going to go into full expression of Ustrasana. We've done a gentle kind of expression where we're on our hands and our knees and we're just leaning back like this. Okay, it's not you're definitely not going to use full Ustrasana. So don't drop back. So modified camel, you're lifting the hips up from Vajrasana. So so you can also just work with this. So anyone who's done the kids yoga with me, the toddlers prefer when they're doing camel go like this, and we do silly noises as well. But if you're, you can get pregnant ladies to do silly noises if you really want to. It's good fun. So yeah, so you can add bolstered blocks or rolled up blankets under the hands, providing lift and supporting the wrists if you're leaning back like that. You're not going to be in it for very long, so I wouldn't say you don't really need to. You might need some blanket underneath the knees if you're coming up onto the knees. But again, with this one, note that it doesn't always feel good in third trimester. Okay. So chair, Utkatasana. So it's good for it's a good standing pose and good for strengthening. You can prop by using a chair, by holding on to a chair. As I said, when we were doing our Mr. Bean pelvic thrusting. So remember, I said in Utkatasana and pregnancy, you don't really want to have the arms up because it does increase lordosis. So it's actually better to come into chair pose with your arms out so that there's less of a curve on the lower back. And then it's quite nice to do the Mr. I call it the Mr. You look a bit like Mr. Bean doing it. Yeah, but it's really good for your ladies, and it's really good for strength and stamina. So it's good for thigh strengthening. You can use a wall. Remember, we also did it against the wall and did some pelvic tilting and incorporated pelvic floor exercises. So by doing this one, it actually is really good to help you with it's good prepping for pain management as well. Get them to really get their thighs on fire a little bit. It's just getting them to have that build strength and stamina. Okay, Balasana, child's pose. It's a good resting pose. You're going to probably incorporate a lot of that. You can get them to hug into bolsters and again use like a block to rest onto Agni Chakra for the oculocardiac nerve, to tone the vagus nerve. So it does help to open the chest and pelvis as well if you have your arms out in front of you. And yeah, you can use as many props as you want. So if you do have kneeling variation with the forearms or forehead to the floor held for length of time, it might help to turn a breech baby. So remember we did it's like with the puppy pose type thing. So when our bottoms were up like this, if the baby's in breech, it might help to turn the baby. Okay, that's quite a handy little tip for you there. You're going to Cobra Bhujangasana, you're going to avoid in pregnancy. It goes without saying. Cow's face pose, Gomukhasana, we worked with that today. It's a good warm up or cool down, but you're going to go into it with a lot more mindfulness because your shoulders are more unstable than your hips. Your hips are going to be a little bit more unstable because of the the relaxing in your body as well, but you just have to be aware of keeping everything stable and safe. So you can use dressing gown belts, yoga belts for holding on, even if you can hold on. Sometimes you don't want to overstrain. So by encouraging them just to be gentle and not push is a good idea. So you would use the arms. You could use the arms opening. Today we did the leg position, but if you're going to use the leg position, you would really prop yourself up, and I would say you would do it with people who've openly practiced yoga. You wouldn't throw in Gomukhasana legs to a bunch of pregnant ladies who've never done yoga before. Okay, and even if they have, you want to prop them up. I would say it's probably better, I would say safer to do Gomukhasana arms and stay in Sukhasana legs, like cross-legged. Okay, for just to keep you safe in that sense. Okay. So dancer, Natarajasana, good for balancing, standing. You can use the support of the chair, the wall, as I showed you yesterday. All the days are merging in. If you want to do that, you just stand and hold on to the back of the leg just for a nice quad stretch. Or if you want to take your hands up to the wall, and really it helps to really open up in the shoulder area as well, and do it to the expression that feels right for you without too much of a strain. Okay, so you can use a chair as well. You can, if you're doing chair yoga, you can work with Natarajasana there too. So it's a good. It also helps, as well as stretching out your quads, it also helps to stretch out the psoas muscle. I think I put in your manual some poses to help stretch out the psoas. The psoas is a good, stretching out the psoas actually helps with fear releasing as well. Okay, so downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. It's if you're feeling sacroiliac pain, you can pigeon toe the feet to create space at the lower back. I would say especially like as they progress in the pregnancy, they're going to be wider anyway, arms wider, legs wider, and encourage that in pregnancy. And as I said, after about it's not going to feel so good in third trimester, and explore other options. If the baby is head down in the last weeks of pregnancy, it's kind of best not to disturb the downward settled baby, especially if the baby was once in a breech position and is finally turned. Okay, so but held for any length of time in down dog, it might again help turn a breech baby. So Malasana is great for optimal fetal position to get the baby's head down. If the baby's head's down and it's in a good position, you don't want to disturb it too much. So you're not going. So the ones that are good for turning the breech baby are the ones that aren't so good if the baby's in a good position. So it's something to be aware of if you've got ladies in their third trimester. Knowing the positioning of has the baby's head dropped, is it in the right position, so you'll know which asanas to advise for them to use. So variation you can use, like the puppy dog pose, but I would say, my earring just flew off there. I would say as they're progressing in their pregnancy and they're after about 30 weeks, I would say you would just get them to go into child's pose as opposed to getting them to go into downward facing dog. Just to prevent, I think it's about, you don't want to go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Hindsight's a great thing. I just think keeping everyone safe is really important. Okay, so eagle, Garudasana, it's a good shoulder opener, good for upper back release. Again, it's good for kyphosis. So you can use, you can use a yoga strap with the arms, but I just think if you can't get it, doesn't matter. I think it would just complicate things. So the full pose, you can, I think it's more beneficial to lean against the wall or to not do a full wrap of the legs. We did a full wrap, but I did say that I would prefer you just to like bend the knees and have both feet on the ground. I think that is the way forward there. So the lower leg cross can be done with hands holding onto the chair support. You can do the legs by holding, you can do eagle legs, but not the full eagle legs holding onto a chair, or do eagle leaning against the wall. But you know, it's probably not the greatest to do the full expression, but you don't know what stage they're at or where they're at. But you would advise that you would rather have both feet on the ground, especially in third trimester. The baby's going to be low down, so you're not going to really manage to cross over so well anyway. You don't want to squeeze that bit. Okay, goddess pose. So it's a good hip opener and leg strengthener. It's a great one. You probably noticed that I popped that one into most of my pregnancy classes, because it is a great one for creating stiram sukham, and really like the stamina. So you can prop it by sitting on a chair or leaning on the back. So even if they are really heavily pregnant, the goddess isn't for them, you can do goddess sitting on a chair in that sort of sense. So you can integrate movement with breath. Some people call it the dancing bear flow, and we did that today, where we were leaning and with the breath when goddess pose moving. Some people call it the dancing bear flow. If anyone's spoken about it, no, it's not something that pops up in conversation, but now you know. Dancing bear flow. Okay, and I incorporate mudras, and you were working with empowerment, so breathing in, and then that when you're in the goddess pose as well, working with mudras too. Really, it's a great kind of goddess inspiring one. So a supported variation can help to turn a breech baby as well. Sorry, it can't. It's not going to help turn a breech baby. Sorry, it's one that if you've got PGP, you've got anything going on like pain in the hips, you're not going to do it. You're going to not do a wide hip opening is not good for PGP. Okay, so that's what it is. It's not going to turn a baby, so you're all right. It's actually really good for helping with optimal fetal positioning. So if the baby's head is low, it's going to help it nestle down a little bit more. Or if it's not found its position yet, goddess pose is a good one for optimal fetal positioning. Okay, half moon pose, Ardha Chandrasana. So it's a good hip opening, balancing pose. You would use a chair or a wall to support yourself there, but be cautious with pelvic pain. Okay, so it's if they don't have pelvic pain, because again, it's a hip opener as well. Okay, but you can use the wall, use a chair. Ardha Chandrasana is a nice one because it's a balance, so it does help you become more present as well. So Janu Shirshasana, it's always a winner for me. I always think it's a good go-to pose. Now, usual Janu Shirshasana is a twist as well as a forward bend. So it helps to neutralize the spine. The modified version that we do is a forward bend. You're not coming over the leg. You need to create space for the baby. So it's actually a really good labor prep pose, and it helps to prepare the pelvis for labor and delivery. It stretches the hamstrings, the pelvic muscles, and it strengthens the spine. You can use a prop. You can use dressing gown belts or strap around the foot to kind of help you come down a little bit further if you really want to. Or you can use you can use a chair as well. So if you're coming into, you can have the chair here into your, so from a restorative perspective, if you want to do a lot more, if you want to do more of a chair-based class, instead of, I popped it in as a bit of a segment, but you could do a chair-based class if you really wanted to, for you could do a chair-based class for ladies with specific, you know, issues with in pregnancy. So it's something to consider, or for ladies in their third trimester. Okay, so Virasana, hero pose, and Supta Virasana. So hip is a good hip opener. It's a good psoas opener, thigh release. You can use lots of props to prop up. It rejuvenates the legs. I would say don't do recline. I wouldn't do a recline superhero pose in pregnancy. You know, it's too much of a back bend and too much of a stretch. You don't want knees to have issues either. So so you know, if people can't sit in Virasana, just get them to come into Sukhasana. You know, it's not worth the problems that you might get with knees. But if people can do it, I find it very comfortable to sit in Virasana. I always have done. So I'm more of an internal rotator. It is really good for rejuvenating the legs. If you're sitting on the heels in Thunderbolt pose, it's actually really good for relieving digestive issues like nausea, acidity, indigestion, constipation. Okay, so it is a good prep for labor as well. It starts to get the system, you know, really moving. Okay, so Parshvattanasana, intense forward bend stretch. So it helps to relieve sacroiliac issues and leg cramping. You can use the support of the wall or the chair. We did it with the chair today. It's nice against the wall as well. You wouldn't, I would say you wouldn't move into the full expression of it without a wall or a chair, because you're going to be too unstable coming forwards, and also because of low blood pressure. So you're moving the torso parallel to the floor. So you're not going to try and take yourself down the way you normally would do in your own practice. So the torso should be parallel and the arms can extend to the wall or the chair support. So you're going to, with shoulders down, headstand, handstand, peacock feather pose, wheel, you're going to avoid, okay? You're not going to teach new advanced yoga postures. If you've got yogis that have been coming for a while, they're in second trimester, maybe a supported shoulder stand with their hips up. But you know, at the end of the day, you don't want to risk anything. You don't want to take chances. So you know, just to be safe, I would say leave inversions out. You know, it's not like there's going to be any problems if you leave them out. There's more likely to be problems if you decide to pop them in and be more creative. So, you know, you don't want to get your ego in the way of people's health and safety.
Louisa?
Yes.
Sorry, I think sometimes, you know, as you say, you've got some yogis that come and they go, oh, well, I would normally do this, and so it's okay, but it's actually about educating them that in actual fact you've got an additional weight. So if you want to do a headstand, you've got an additional weight on your cervical spine, which they may very well have not even thought about.
Mm-hmm. And the point of the, you know, your point of where you normally would be is different. And I have seen like some wild pictures of, you know, like really advanced, well, they're advanced in their practice, but you know, they're not about advanced in their yoga in the sense that that's not me judging them. It's just very much, they maybe are as well, but pictures of pregnant yogis doing outrageous, like, you know, like peacock feather pose and stuff like that. It just makes me feel really uncomfortable. I remember seeing a picture, it was a few years ago, somebody tagged me in it thinking I'd be really impressed, and it was a lady doing an inversion, and she's postnatal, and her baby is breastfeeding her while she's doing an inversion. I'm like, that's just not cool at all. That's like really dangerous. She could fall and like kill her baby. That's actually not cool. That's more of an ego thing. So yeah, I think it's very much keeping them safe, knowing, like, working with what asanas, you know, I do work with, I really always work with the biomechanics and the energetics of the asana as well. So you can always create that, the energetics of the biomechanics using another asana. You don't have to use inversions, you know, in that sense, you know, just for the sake of throwing in an inversion. You know, if you're teaching a general class without pregnant people in it, you're not always going to be throwing in the headstand. You know, I mean, the people that are doing the Ashtanga, they'll always have that. But, you know, if you're like heavily pregnant, you're not going to be going to an Ashtanga class, you know. But maybe there's some people that do, but this isn't an Ashtanga yoga pregnancy training. This is yoga for pregnancy, and I would say no. Just keep everyone happy and safe. It's really
we have a responsibility to tell them why we're not doing it, so they don't go home and do it as well.
Definitely. I think it's, I always like to give you the foundations, like here's what the rules sort of thing. Do with it what you wish. You know, here's the foundations, and build the foundations. You guys can grow from yourself, from your own experiences, your own knowledge. I'll give you here's the foundational stuff, and then do with it what you wish. You know, you might want to go further with the mudras, you might want to go further with birthing balls or things like that, or hypnobirthing and things like that. I'm giving you like foundational stuff that you can go with, but when it comes down to the asana, this is the implications, this is what you can do with them in pregnancy. You know, I'm not giving you every single asana in the book, but I'm just trying to do some general stuff just so you can have an understanding if that's, yeah, okay. So yeah, so Viparati Karani, legs up the wall position. Some people call that an inversion. I don't, because I'm my lineage is Krishnamacharya. So some people call this a gentle inversion. But I would say I wouldn't do this for third trimester, but is a lovely one for ladies who are, you know, in their first trimester. If you're not teaching them, you can, but you know, I have had people in their first trimester because they've been practicing with me for years and years and years, and then they tell me they've just found out they're pregnant. And, you know, I'm not going to say go away. They've chosen to just keep practicing, and I don't teach wild things. I'll tell them that I don't want them to be working with kumbhaka. I don't want them to be doing breath of fire or, you know, strong core work stuff. But you know, so it tends to be, you're not in the first trimester very long, because you find out you're pregnant almost when you're in almost reaching into the second trimester anyway. So there's only a few weeks of that. Should I be teaching? So yeah, so I would say if somebody comes to you saying they're pregnant and you've not taught them, say, come back to me when you're in your second trimester. But Viparati Karani is a restorative. You would have to demo coming in and out of it. You would prop it up with a blanket stack or a bolster under the hips. And you're going to mention conditions for coming out. You'd have to come out of it if you feel heaviness or heat at the head or the chest, if you've trouble breathing, and if you're not comfortable. So it's actually really good for swollen or varicose veins, you know, so you get a lot of swollen ankles and feet, and, you know, I think that's quite beneficial. You can do leg variations, like do wide angle pose or bound angle, or even Sukhasana, cross-legged position against the wall. It helps with fatigue as well, and it may help release backache, and it takes the heavy baby weight off of the pelvic floor too. But it just doesn't feel good in third trimester anyway, okay? It calms the nervous system, it balances the hormones, it rejuvenates the mind and reduces fatigue as well. So it is a good one to incorporate. but you're not going to be in it as long as you would be for restorative. So the lion, Simhasana. So this is the one with the that we've done. So you would obviously demo that first. You'd find a seated position, and encourage women to find their inner lioness. So you've got your little cubs growing inside of you, and so it releases and tones of facial muscles. And remember, we were saying that if you're holding tension in your jaw and up around your neck, you're going to be holding tension down below and in the cervix as well. So it's going to take longer for dilation. So you want to get them to learn to release and relax around the jaw and the neck area. It's also good for the vagal toning as well. So lunges, crescent moon lunge, any type of lunges, they're really good for releasing the psoas. And as I said, you would take especially in third trimester, you're taking the leg a little bit wider out to create space in the pelvis. And doing that pulsing first of all before you come into it actually really helps the psoas to go, oh, okay, I'm quite happy to open up now. And then if you come up onto the knee, you can put blankets underneath the knee. And then remember, we worked with the lotus, the mothering lotus. We're coming forwards and back. It's a really nice thing to do when you're in your crescent lunge. Okay, so you're connecting with your breath, working with the mudra, and opening your psoas. You're totally multitasking. So if you're having trouble bringing the foot forwards from table pose, bring it forward from kneeling instead. Okay, so you're keeping the knees aligned over the ankles. You're trying to anyway, then we're going to move into Tadasana as well. So it's standing awareness to posture. So you can work with discussing how to your posture and getting them to really be aware of that, checking in with themselves, and also in between segments. So I always like to segment, and even in all my classes, I like to segment them so that then they get a chance to check in with themselves. And I think checking in with you at that time, when you're checking in with yourself, you're giving your students a chance to go and have a little sip of water as well. Okay, so it's a foundation for standing poses. You can add arm, shoulder, upper back, and lateral stretching movements as well with that. Another one is like doing your invisible hula hooping as well. That's quite nice to do. So just avoid standing still, holding for any length of time. You're not going to be holding anything for any length of time, but you're also not moving quickly. So it's smooth and slow transitions. You're connecting with the breath. So you integrate movement with breathing. So let's look at the pigeon, Ekapada Raja Kapotanasana. It's a good hip opener. It's good for flexibility. It's a good labor prep pose. Good to prepare the pelvis for labor or delivery. Again, be aware of PGP, like pelvic girdle pain and that. Prop it up as much as you can. And also remember, it's not about the shape, it's about, it's more about the function as opposed to the form. So you can have that, the front foot, close to the pelvis instead of trying to get it away and trying to get the shin, parallel to the wall in front of you. You're wanting to just help to open up the hips and get a little bit of juiciness going in there. Again, you're not going to stay there for as long as you would do in any sort of restorative or yin practice. It's just a really lovely posture to work with for get the circulation going there. So plank pose, so Vashisthasana, you're going to hug the baby towards the spine. You're not doing, I would say, so Vashisthasana, you're going to try and work with the TVA, but I would say most of the time you're going to have one knee down. So, it's safer. But, it depends on where your ladies are at. So keep bringing in the TVA. So you're not going to do like core crunching and stuff like that. But in pregnancy yoga, I don't really do it for normal yoga either. But working with this TVA muscle, we are going to speak about anatomy later on. But like hugging that in, that's actually a good one to like really work with hugging in the baby. So when we're doing super woman and that as well, so it's a kind of a half plank pose. So I would say don't do the full plank and don't do full side plank. I would say keep one knee on the ground and concentrate on hugging the baby in. Okay. So side plank variation, it needs less abdominal work than full plank. So it's less dodgy if you're wanting to take your legs up and work with the side stretch, because it does help create more room in the torso and the rib cage, which is what your mums are looking for. But give them, there's a lot of people that aren't pregnant that can't do full side stretch, full Vashisthasana, if you look at it from that way. So there's a lot of bendy yogis out there that are teaching, they're great on their mat and they're teaching the general public, but they're teaching their type of practice. I think you have to be aware of who you're teaching. And a lot of the general public even find it difficult to sit on the floor. Sukhasana is difficult. That's something that my teacher training, I was taught like a really powerful, I was taught as a vinyasa, I was taught as a Ashtanga teacher, but I never taught Ashtanga. It was more my practice back in 2003. 2006, I trained as a vinyasa flow teacher, but it was a really strong practice. And I came straight out of that and started teaching in like David Lloyd and gyms and stuff like that. So I was used to like really bendy, flexible people. And then I started working in gyms and like in halls and stuff like that. And I realized, people want one-to-ones. I'm like, oh my goodness. Most of the general public struggle to actually sit on the floor and get down on the floor. So I completely changed I didn't change my own personal practice. I adapted my teaching. So I was more accessible. So I wasn't just reaching the people who had been practicing for a long time, the bendy people. If you want to teach advanced and intermediate, that's amazing and that's great. But the general public tend to be not advanced or intermediate. And pregnant ladies, most of them tend to not be advanced or intermediate either. So take that into consideration, that they probably won't want to, or they're not going to be able to, even if they weren't pregnant, to go into side plank. They've a lot of people come to pregnancy yoga that's the first time they've ever done yoga before. So throwing in some of the good shapes that we love might not be beneficial for them. And it might make them get that kind of, oh God, I'm not good enough. Oh, they're all really bendy. I'm really rubbish. That sort of way. And you want them to feel empowered. So give them modifications and options. You tend to have people in your class that are, it's like mixed abilities. So I like to say, right, if I'm teaching side plank, I'll have some of my students that are in my class, like Laura, who's an advanced practitioner. She can take it really far. I'll say you can take it further, and she'll go further than me. And you have students that, it'll be their first time they've come. When we do the yoga supper club, somebody's brought their mate and they've never done it before. So you will have people you can say, stay on one knee, and say, stay there. You can say, enjoy where you're at. Or some of you might want to come into Vashisthasana, and then you wouldn't be doing more of the wild advanced stuff with your pregnant people. But get them to, if you've got a mixture of capabilities in your class, I would say, you can do it in stages. Teach them and you can stay there and enjoy where you're at. That's the kind of wording that I would use, because that's them not thinking, oh God, look at all these people, they're so much better than me, I'm so rubbish. They won't think like that. They'll be more like, okay, I'm going to enjoy where I'm at. And it teaches you things that you learn on your mat, you take into your life. So it teaches people to be okay with where they're at that point in time off their mat too. So the wording is really important when you're teaching. So reclining big toe pose, Supta Padangusthasana. Avoid lying on the back. So you're not gonna lie in the back. To do that, and you're not gonna do the twist version. So you can do it with you can do the standing version against the wall. Okay, I would say it's not something I would probably do so much in a pregnancy yoga class anyway. But you can do we did a kind of version today. Yeah, that's a good one to do. So adaptations of or modifications. So that's a modification of a Supta Padangusthasana for pregnancy. Okay. So you would avoid any sort of revolved asanas, like compression or twists. Any closed twists, you're just completely avoiding. So I would just say, yeah, just completely avoid. If you do a twist, it's an open twist because you want to create expansiveness and you want to open up in the thoracic. Okay, but no closed twists at all. Okay, that's a big rule. Seated Sukhasana is a good one to bring awareness to posture. You can avoid, so it says basically they're saying avoid crossing your ankles. If you're in Sukhasana, you're going to be crossing your ankles. So I think if people are uncomfortable, they'll move. And a lot of the time you're going to want your students to be propped up. They're propped up, they're not going to be putting pressure on the ankles. I think it's just prevention of build up in the fluid in the ankles and the legs there. So just make them be aware that hips raised, and if they feel any discomfort, let them know they can move. Because when yin, we tell our students in yin to find comfort in our discomfort. You're not going to do that to your pregnant people. Any discomfort, move. Okay. I'm going to have to block that number that Kate said, Manchester number, and they keep phoning on different variations of it to ask me if I've been in a car crash recently, or telling me I've been in a car crash, and all this sort of stuff. You keep blocking the number and then another one calls. It's quite frustrating. Okay, so you can integrate movement with breathing in Sukhasana, add arm, shoulder, upper back, lateral stretching movements. You can add shoulder lifts, neck exercises, and you can also do the baby. We do this in children's yoga. The rocking the baby. So it just helps to open the hips and alleviate hip joint discomfort. Yeah, so rocking that baby is really good for your pregnant ladies too. So today we did quite a bit of Paschimottanasana. So seated forward bend. You would tip forward in the hip creases, and you're not going to go far with your baby belly. So put a blanket block or supports underneath the hips as well. And you can even put stuff in front too. You can use a dressing gown belt or a yoga strap around the feet as well, but you don't want to be hauling yourself. There's no pulling and pushing and that sort of malarkey. So the legs are going to be a little bit apart in Paschimottanasana, staying soft at the knees and with the heels on the floor. So it's a good hamstring and spine stretch, and it's really good for the body and the mind. So it's good for before Shavasana. Okay. So Utthita Parsvakonasana, side angle. So it's good for strengthening. So you would bring the bottom arm to the thigh, or you're going to use a block or a chair. You're not going to come into the full expression of it. So you can use chairs, you can use walls, we did a kind of variation of it with the goddess pose. So we were in goddess pose, and the bear dancing bear flow. But if you're wanting to use, so if you came into, it would be like that, okay? Or you could use a chair or block or wall. You wouldn't come into the full expression, okay? Side lying, leg and arm exercises. So if you're on your side, you can do some side stretches. You can be quite creative with that if you want to be, okay? But you wouldn't be lying on your back. It's lying on your left side. You can work with some of that. I don't tend to pop that sort of things, and it starts to make it quite weird and complex. If you try and be too complex, it just, people come into their heads and come out their hearts. So they start going, what do I do here? What? And then they start thinking about it. I prefer to flow things and get them in kind of compartments and get people to kind of know where they're at and feel it instead of think it. It helps to sink down into your heart center and connect more with the baby. You don't want to be connecting with your thoughts instead of your baby. So yeah, I just think that's something to consider. So you can be creative, but try not to be too creative in the sense that it's not a mind practice. You're wanting to still the fluctuations of the mind stuff. So Malasana, squatting pose. So you can do it with leaning against a wall. You can have a blanket supporting under the heels. A lot of people can't get their heels down, especially if they've been runners or anything like that. They've done a lot of running things. They're going to struggle with that. Or sometimes you've got a shorter Achilles heel. You can hold on to a chair doing it. Or you can sit in a block. So if they're really heavily pregnant, you're not going to come right down. Just you don't want to really put too much pressure on. So you really want them to be supported. Okay. So, and if they don't know if their baby's lying head down with their back to the belly yet, full squats may reinforce the wrong position, okay? So don't have them squat down if they're dealing with, if they've got an incompetent cervix, painful knees, PGP, hemorrhoids, varicose veins. There's certain things. It's a great one if everything is well and right with you. If they're 38 weeks plus, and they know for sure the baby's in optimal fetal position and feels comfortable, they can do it. So Abby, that I did, my daughter's friend, that I put the one-to-one onto your group, she was 34 weeks and she knew that the baby was in the right position. So we were able to work with that. So it's a good labor prep pose. You know, so the pelvic outlet opens in a squatting position, and the perineum is able to stretch. So it's an ideal position to give birth. So squatting provides a deep connection with the earth, and it allows the force of gravity to help the baby descend through the birth canal. So practicing squatting during pregnancy will build your leg strength, boost circulation in your pelvis. It opens up the pelvic region. It helps to position the baby correctly. It relieves back pain, especially in the lower back, and it helps to fight constipation too. So in labor, squatting decreases the vaginal length, and it provides an increase in the pelvic outlet diameter for easier delivery. So to come out of malasana to standing, press into the floor or chair so as not to put extra pressure on the pelvic floor. So you've seen it a few times today. So we're in malasana, and then you're curling round, just slowly curling round. So no pressure on the pelvis as you're coming out of it, okay? Or it's the same if you're coming, we did the adrenal release earlier today, or you're coming forwards onto your knees. So no pressure in the pelvis when you're moving in and out of malasana. So staff pose, a dandasana, that's seated pose, the legs extended. It stretches the hamstrings and it strengthens the back. You can sit in a bolster or a blanket, but it's a good one for, again, getting them to be aware of their posture. Standing forward bends, Uttanasana, Prasarita, Padmottanasana. If you're doing Uttanasana, your legs are wider than usual. And you would, I would say, like with Prasarita, Padmottanasana, you just have to, in third trimester, I would say, use a wall or a chair, you're going to topple over. Make sure you're going to bend the knees and come up very slowly, because you're more likely to have a low blood pressure as well. So avoid any compression in the belly as well. It strengthens the legs and it takes the weight of the baby off the pelvic floor and back though. So it's good for you. The table, so coming onto your hands and knees, it's good for, you can move into the table as a warm-up or any time during your practice. You can work with a gentle cat-cow. As I said, you don't want to increase lordosis or kyphosis. And supine cats, another it's a nice one instead of doing a normal sun salutation. And then we would work with, you can work with Superwoman. You could work with, you side like half Ardha, Vashisthasana, half side plank, pelvic tilt, circles. You can do figure of eights, you can wag your bushy tail. So there's lots of different ways you can work with that. It's really good for relieving back tension, especially lower back pain, and it relieves cramp of some of the round ligaments, and it gets the baby in optimal fetal positioning, head down, back to belly. So, and it also might feel good in labor. So it takes the weight of the baby off the pelvic floor in the back. So I know that Abby loved doing a supine cat. It really helped her. It feels so much less pressure, the baby. So cat-cow postures is one of the best poses to do daily. Okay. Thunderbolt pose, Vajrasana, so legs under the body and thighs and top of the feet. So they can have a blanket support under the shins or between the buttocks and the heels and or behind the knees. It rejuvenates the legs. It's good for, again, good for digestion and a sluggish system. If your knees are playing up or they're shouting at you, they have to come away. They can move into Virasana with a block underneath or come into Sukhasana. Tree pose, Vrikshasana, balancing pose, it improves postural alignment. You bring the non-standing foot to the supporting leg, ankle, shin, or calf, or thigh, and the arms in any comfortable variation. So I would say, you know, third trimester, you not really want them to take their foot right up to their thigh in case their foot slips and bangs down, okay? So you would do it with a chair or wall support more than anything. And be careful with pelvic and sciatica pain as well. So, okay. So triangle, Utthita Trikonasana. So the standing pose, you're going to do it in more of a train track alignment. It's not so wide, and it's not heel to instep. It's more train tracky. So it's good for endurance, stamina, hip opening, and flexibility. You can do it against a wall, or you can also hold on to a chair as well. So it helps to build leg strength and increases circulation. So twists, you only do open twists, no compressing twists. And keep the twist only in the upper chest and shoulders, okay? So you would have the baby belly, the navel facing forwards. Virabhadrasana 1, warrior 1. So it's a good one for building a stamina as well, leg and arm strength, and increases circulation. So variation would be sitting on a chair or a half warrior in a low lunge. You know, from the fact that they're struggling with getting their breathing or their intercostal muscles. A good one to work with in warrior 1 is breathing in, breathing out, draw the shoulder blades together. So breathe in, breathe out. So it really just helps to work the intercostal muscles there. Okay. Warrior 2, again, building leg and arm strength, stability. So you could work with reverse warrior as well. On third trimester, working with warrior 2 on a chair is probably better. And again, you don't want to be doing deep hip openers if you've got PGP or you've just had a cesarean or something as well. So again, you're going to have the train track thing. So warrior 1, it's a different stance. So that's absolutely perfect. You're heel to heel, and just get your ladies. I would say maybe get your legs a bit wider apart in warrior 1. So get them to know that they don't. It's not about looking great or the alignment. It's about feeling stable and comfortable, and they're not wobbly. Okay, warrior 3. So we popped in a wee warrior 3 today. It's great to do with a chair or wall, but I think if you're still third trimester and you're all right, if you don't use a wall, that's okay, because we're not in it for a long time. It's good for increasing circulation, arm and leg strength, but also it takes the weight off the baby, takes all that pressure off your pelvis as well. But yeah, do what you feel is right, or get your ladies to feel what's right. They can hold on to a chair or a wall to do it. Upavista Konasana, wide angle pose. It's a good labor prep as well. It prepares the pelvis for delivery as well. So you can sit in a blanket or bolster support, or you can put it's underneath the knees. You can use a strap around one or both feet. Variation is stirring the pot. So yeah, you would just you're not going to allow your head to drop down like a bowling ball. You're going to try and keep the back of your neck long. Shavasana is left-sided lying relaxation, and you're going to allow all parts of the body to be supported. Vina Cava, it drains the lower half of the body. So preferably the left side of the body instead of the right, because the anatomy of the abdomen and the vena cava. So anatomically, the vena cava lies just to the right of the spine. So this means that when a mother-to-be is lying on her left side, there's best circulation and blood flow between the heart and the vena cava, because there will be the least amount of baby weight on it. So lying on the right side is still better than lying on the back, but you're going to encourage them to lie on their left side, okay? So it's just really about the blood flow. So you're not going to be lying on the back, especially after 20 weeks. And you always do a minimum of about 10 minutes at least of Shavasana at the end of the class. And it's good for, I mean, we all know how great Shavasana is. I'm not going to go into that in a deep way. Okay, so that is not all of the poses, there's so many of them, but that's just giving you a bit of a general idea of how you would adapt some of the postures. So I'm going to speak a little bit about Ayurveda and pregnancy before lunch, because I was speaking about pregnancy just before and how I tried to incorporate, I suppose having a chicken laksa noodle soup for breakfast is quite good to balance my vata, because it's a cold day. So yeah, maybe I did incorporate that. It's probably not got all the nutrients from what I normally would have. But anyway, Ayurveda, if you've not, a lot of my guys, I incorporate Ayurveda into my 200 hours and use, I know that Laura, you didn't do the 200 hours with me, but you've done the yoga and Ayurveda. If you've not practiced or you don't have an understanding of Ayurveda, it's the sister science of yoga, and it's we have, it comes from the Samkhya philosophy, where we have Purusha, Prakriti. Purusha is the all-encompassing universal consciousness. Prakriti is creative potential, anything that changes, and which leads to, Prakriti is made up of the gunas, and the gunas are Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. And then we move into down into the elements, and then we start working with the doshas. So there's 3 doshas, 3 body types. We have Vata, and Vata is ruled by air and ether, and you can have Vata imbalances, which are insomnia, worry, anxiety. You're moving about all the time. They tend to be a bit more dry and wiry, and there's Pitta. Pitta is fire and water, tends to be more average build, but they can be the Pitta could be acerbated, which can lead to inflammation or anger if they're overheated, or different things like that. Kapha is very much, you're more laid back, you're more have this big boned, but people go, I don't want to be kaphas, and it's not necessarily you can have kapha people who are very thin, but they're kaphic in nature. We all need kaphas in their life. They're the reliable, loving friends. We all have a kapha in our lives, and we all need one. So they're the reliable, loving people. But one of their downfalls is they're more prone to not wanting to move, so they can become more tamasic, and it's water and earth is their elements. So that's just a little basic rundown, but you can look deeper into that if you like. So let's look at Ayurveda and pregnancy. So many physical, mental, emotional, spiritual changes occur during the 9 months of pregnancy. So there's a clear trend in Western countries where women ignore these changes, just as they try to ignore their periods or fertility cycles. So they act as if nothing is different except that a child is forming and growing in them. So Ayurveda sees things differently and teaches to adopt an attitude of deep respect towards pregnant women. So they play a vital role in bringing a new life to this world, and their experience during pregnancy directly nourishes the child growing in them. So the more fulfilling and loving the pregnancy, the more the unborn child will perceive the world that awaits him or her positively. So to go through this adventure in the best possible way, wise women listen to their bodies and tap into the positive forces of the physical and spiritual worlds. And this helps them to give birth gracefully so that their children receive the best possible start in this world. So energetically speaking, pregnancy is full of change, creativity, and expansion. Therefore, vata is generally increased, and the woman's metabolism also increases along with heat, which induces an increase of pitta. And a large part of the body extends, so kapha also increases during this period. So these changes affect each woman's constitution as well as the constitution of the unborn baby. So I'm crouching on mine. There we go. That's better. I prop myself up here. So here's a few general tips that you can give your pregnant students so they can manage their pregnancy with peace of mind. So take care of your ahar, vihar, and vichar. So ahar means diet, vihar means lifestyle, and vichar means thoughts. Ayurveda emphasizes the importance of maintaining these three areas in good condition. I think in real life, even if you're not pregnant, you should be thinking about your diet, your lifestyle, and your thoughts. So eating well, having a healthy lifestyle, and having positive thoughts encourages your baby's growth and good health. Eat and follow a lifestyle consistent with your present Ayurvedic condition rather than being focused on your dominant doshic constitution. So some people who are vata might become very pitta because they're inflamed and they're all overheating. And so they need to, you start to work on eating according to the pitta dosha. So your condition will vary from day to day, especially after the 4th month of pregnancy. So this is completely normal. So it means that you begin to feel the needs and desires of the baby through your food preferences. So the golden rule is to fill your cravings by choosing the right foods. Eat natural and fresh food. Avoid processed foods and leftovers. Stay away from refined sugars, cold food coming directly from the fridge or freezer, and chemical additives. Most of your diet should be liquid or semi-liquid, therefore favor soups, broths, and purees, and don't hesitate to vary your diet. All rasas or flavors are allowed. Nutritional needs increase during pregnancy, and this is true for both quality and quantity. So there's a need for more calories, calcium, protein, and iron. Herbal brews can help you meet these needs. For pitta and kapha, infusions made from raspberry or nettles are recommended. And for vata, oat straw infusions are indicated. Okay, so food is only the first step. You have to monitor your digestion. Poor digestion often manifests itself by flatulence, stomach pain, intestinal discomfort, constipation, and diarrhea. The rules for good digestion during pregnancy are the same as in normal times. Eat seated, slowly, without speaking, and at regular hours. Focus on your meal. Eat appropriate foods for your constitution or your current state. Don't eat breakfast too late. Eat lunch at noon and dinner around 6. We also advise you to add digestive herbs to your meal to help your digestion. Herbs you can safely use during pregnancy are mint, tarragon, cardamom, jasmine, caraway, cinnamon, and basil. Happiness and love are truly nourishing elements for the mother and her unborn baby. So you can increase these elements the following ways: sing, dance, pray, meditate, contemplate the lives of holy, healthy, or inspiring people, and surround yourself with people who motivate. Avoid violent or disturbing TV programs or books. It means stay away from Netflix because it's all about murderers. No, my goodness. Most of it is, anyway. Cherish your environment by taking care of small details, and having a beautiful and soothing environment is very important. Massage the soles of your feet with sesame oil to help balance vata, and this will allow you to ease the flow of energy through your body. If you're in a pitta phase, sesame oil could be too heated, so choose sweet almond oil. A good way for you and your partner to spend time together and relax is for you to massage each other's feet at night. Sounds good. So avoid sleeping during the day so as not to cause imbalances, especially if you're kapha, unless you sleep poorly at night and become vata. Rest is beneficial, but only at the right time and in the right amount. Walk daily, swim or do yoga several times a week, and they are exercises indicated during pregnancy. If you feel tension in your body, take a bath. Tension prevents the flow of blood and energy. So as a result, the toxins remain in the body instead of being evacuated. A warm bath in which you can relax will help you loosen tight muscles. Be careful, however, not to use water that's too hot. The Ayurvedic teachings on fetal development explain that the constitution of the baby is formed from the genetic mixture of the father and mother, the mother's emotions during pregnancy, her diet, the influences of her direct environment, and spiritual patterns from past lives that the soul carries in it. Ayurveda also explains that the baby is physically aware of his development, which is now confirmed by perinatal psychology. Another important lesson is that everything that happens through the sense organs of the mother plays a part in the development process of the baby's sense organs. Hence the importance of a woman's environment during her pregnancy. You should advise your students to look at beautiful things that relate to love, to listen to soft and melodious music, to touch pleasant things, to eat whole food, and to smell delicate fragrances. So let's look at the development of the baby. It's called a Garbhini Paricharya. So it's the key months. So Garbhini Paricharya is the Ayurvedic prenatal care for pregnant women. So they're tips for the proper development of the baby while ensuring the good health of the pregnant women. So it prepares them for delivery. So there's many concepts, but the most basic ones are to read spiritual books, not to sleep during the day, and not to eat spicy food. I found eating spicy food stopped me from feeling so fatigued. It made me feel really like alert. I was feeling really, ugh. So I think it's like working with what works for you. So the first trimester, during the first 3 months, only astral projections connect the baby to his current body. The focus must therefore be on stabilizing the pregnancy. So they should nourish the uterus through diet, so through liquid substances such as fruit juice, coconut water, or milk. So that you'll find with some yogis are vegans. When we were doing the yoga for Ayurveda, I had some vegans in my in the training, and in yoga and Ayurveda they do actually. If you're not kapha, if you're vata, they do advise for you to have a lot of ghee and milk and dairy, and some people are lactose intolerant as well. So and they do it. So I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I also, I'm a tantrika, so I'm not vegan. I don't eat beef or lamb, but I eat according to my dosha. If I feel like I need, my body needs something, I will give that to my body instead of going, oh my goodness, I'm a yogi, I have to be vegan. It's like, if you're a vegan, that's great, and you can choose to eat, you can still eat Ayurvedically, but there's certain things that you might not be getting nutrition from that you would have to source elsewhere. But we're speaking about traditional Ayurveda here, so which traditional Ayurveda and do not, the tantrics, they don't advocate becoming vegan. This is very much more of a it's Hindu, and it's more it's a completely different concept. So I have had a lot of vegans asking me about that. So I'm not anti-vegan either, don't worry. I love vegan food, but if you're going to really learn about Ayurveda, there is going to be dairy products involved. So in the first month, Ayurveda recommends that the patients sip cold milk during her meals and eat only in the morning and evening for breakfast and dinner. In the second and third month, during the second and third months, the indications remain few and again only concern the food. So concoctions made from hot milk, milk and ghee are recommended. So in the fourth month is essential because it's when the head, the torso and the extremities of the baby begin to differentiate themselves. The motor system, the sensory nerve tissues are evolving and the heart begins to develop as the seat of consciousness. This is when the baby's desires will appear and express themselves through the desires of the pregnant woman. So the needs of the fetus and the mother become synchronized. For this reason, Ayurveda recommends that the wishes of the pregnant woman can be felt as long as they remain reasonable and don't harm the health of the mother or the fetus. With the development of the baby's heart, the pregnant woman must also be careful not to expose herself to emotional problems. If the mother encounters marital problems during this fourth month, the baby's heart may be malformed. I keep reading this stuff. Yeah, my husband was seriously ill with cancer when I was pregnant with Kaya. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done to my child? But you actually can't. We all have emotional problems at times in our life. If it's 9 months, there's going to be something happening in 9 months because we're human beings. So it's about handling emotions. So it's not about, oh, stay away from emotional stuff. This is like coming back from the traditional Ayurveda, where there may be men living in the caves and not being responsible for their families in that sense. So this is the advice, but the advice I would say for a more modern perspective is sitting in the eye of the storm, practicing skill and action. If something happens where you know that you're not in control of the situation, you're in control of your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings. So you can choose, you don't have to react, you can choose how to respond. Okay, and I think that's the thing. Not, it makes you, I had this huge, when I was studying this, I had these huge pangs of guilt. Oh my goodness, Kaya's so affected. And because there was other stuff going on at that point as well. And you can't help that there's going to be, how many pregnant ladies during this pandemic are going to feel emotional at some point. That's, there's not going to be loads of babies coming out there with defects because the mum was really, it's just not great for the baby, for the mum to be stressed, basically. Okay, so moving to 5th to 7th month, herbs that strengthen the uterine muscles that nourish the embryo are recommended during this period. So Ayurveda recommends ashwagandha. So I take that every day, which helps to ensure optimal condition of the placenta, uterine tissue, and umbilical cord. The diet should revolve around rice, milk, butter, and ghee, and fruits with yellow or orange colours such as mangoes, apples, or citrus fruit are also indicated. Green vegetables as well. So the 8th month, the diet should contain less fat, less salt, and less water. So Ayurveda recommends favouring cooked rice with a little ghee. And during the 8th month, the mother's ojas is transmitted to the baby. So ojas is really, it's powerful. It's really like we all need, ojas is something that we need to sustain. It's part of the yamas and niyamas, the brahmacharya, so they say to practice celibacy. It's more about energy conservation. If we give our energy away too much, we deplete ojas. Ojas is almost like the fuel that we need to sustain us. It's what gives us our immune, like strengthens our immune system. Okay, so being able to create and keep ojas is very important, especially at this time. So don't burn yourself out, basically. So advise your student to consume more foods that produce ojas: ghee, milk, dates, apricots, sesame seeds, almonds, ashwagandha. So encourage your student to connect to her inner self, to stay home and to rest more than usual. We don't want to be told that, because we're all being told to stay at home right now. It'd be like, oh, stop that. So suggest that you spend time in nature to draw on the energies of the earth. And reminder to meditate as often as possible. So to keep ojas, you need to avoid anything that causes unnecessary use of energy and leakage of the vital forces, to try to avoid anger, worry, grief, excess work or sex, drugs or stimulants, hunger and processed food. So the 9th month, last month of pregnancy, is dedicated to getting ready for childbirth. So you should follow a diet that helps to reduce vata, taking into account the season as well as her needs, and the goal is to prevent any imbalance of apana prana, so apana vayu, which could lead to a bad position of the baby during delivery or to uterine dysfunction. So she has to stay away from cold and anything that could weaken her. So we need to work with strengthening the pelvis. I put in into your manual little exercises for the Ayurvedic stuff that they recommend, and then we have in page 71 you have recognizing doshic imbalances during pregnancy, herbs to avoid during pregnancy, and childbirth according to Ayurveda, and we have postpartum care and advice and how to look after yourself after having a baby. I've put a couple of recipes in as well. So a drink to stimulate ojas. Okay, I know that some of you guys are well into your Ayurveda now after studying the Ayurveda. So this is a great one to try. I've even put in a vegan option for you. Okay, so it's a drink to stimulate ojas, and I recommend trying it anyway. And then I've also put in a drink to reduce the baby's digestive problems, and a mix to revive Agni. So Agni is for your digestive system, to get that digestive fire going. So it's good to have that in your fridge. You can make that and then add a little. You just have a little bit of that before each meal, so it gets your system going. And then I've also put how to recognize the dosha in your baby as well. I find these things utterly fascinating. But instead of me reading it all to you, it's from page 70 to page 78, and that is your Ayurvedic stuff. It's really interesting. I would say you don't need to know yoga for Ayurveda for pregnancy to be a pregnancy yoga teacher, but Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga, and if you find Ayurveda utterly fascinating and want to really give your pregnant ladies as much information as they can to help support them in their pregnancy, I think this is really great. You can give them, make out little handouts for them and give them the little recipe for ojas, and giving them little handy tips that you might not have in the old school Western pregnancy books. But this is like coming back to become real traditional yogic techniques, and I think that is actually really beneficial as well. So giving you as much information as you want. You don't have to absorb it if it's not for you, as long as you keep your students safe and happy. So I'm going to let you go and have some lunch now. It's been very lovely to spend time with you as usual. Has anyone got any questions before we break up for lunch and meet back in the afternoon? All right then. So I'll see you about 3:30. Enjoy. Okay. Bye.